Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome. Oops, I almost forgot my notes. Here we go. Welcome, everyone, to this month's panel discussion in our Women's Roundtable, virtual roundtable series, Her Story, Her Power, Women in Entertainment, Arts, and Technology. My name is Faith Murphy, and as a volunteer with the Niles Foundation, I will be your moderator today. And today we have quite the amazing lineup. You are going to hear from three amazing women who are breaking through glass ceilings and dominating career fields that have historically been male dominated, especially when we start to think about arts, entertainment, and technology. For those of you who are new here today, the Niles Foundation is a nonprofit founded to build equity and equality for all. Our focus is on women, youth education, and sustainable projects, and we empower our citizens, especially those of low moderate income and who are underserved and underrepresented. Every month, we bring together women who are making an impact in their communities, and we cover topics that are important to women. But the whole purpose of our series is to ensure that we are educating, inspiring, and empowering. We encourage you to engage with our panelists and use the chat box over here on the side to ask questions. At the end, Jesse, the amazing artist that she is, will be showcasing her talents with a reading after our panel discussion. So with that, let's get started. Our first panelist today is Sia Parker, who has been in the wireless industry for the past 16 years. Her professional career includes being director and regional director at Black & Veatch for the Los Angeles AT&T market prior to returning to T-Mobile as the senior development manager for Tri-LA in 2018. For the last 3 years, she has been a cutting-edge innovator as the market manager for San Diego by leading the market by doubling their goals year over year. Her academic achievements include a bachelor's in sociology, a master's in political science, and a Juris Doctor. She is a woman in tech leader responsible for the purposeful community content for 22 chapters across the country. She leads the Black Caucus for Engineering, dedicated to increasing progressive diversity and inclusion efforts. Additionally, she's got quite the record already. Additionally, she leads the West Region University and the West Region Legal Task Force, zealously creating the strategy behind many of the site advocacy and legal standards to ensure roadblocks are removed to collaboratively meet team-minded merger commitments. In her free time, she likes to travel, cook, and spend time with her family and her son, who attends San Francisco State University. Welcome, Sia.
Thank you. Hi.
Our next guest is Dominique. Hi, welcome. Our next guest is Dominique. Oh God, now I've really messed it up. Ulloa, who is a proud single mom of two from the Crenshaw district of South Los Angeles. Growing up, she had the unique relationship to Hollywood. Her house was in the Boys in the Hood. Her high school choir was the inspiration for the movie Sister Act 2. And the sitcom Moesha was based on her school and neighborhood. That meant the world of television and film was all around her, yet inaccessible at the same time. The Concordia Fellowship, a unique program collaborating and supporting the next level of documentary filmmaking talent, telling stories from diverse perspectives, is helping Dominique translate her editing experience from television and reality programming to editing documentary features and limited series. She studied cinema editing traditions under the tutelage of Joshua Altman, an archive-driven documentary under the tutelage of Pedro Cos, and the practicum on his new feature film. Previously, she worked on the 6-part docuseries Surviving R. Kelly, which aired on Lifetime and was nominated for a Peabody Award. She also edited the television documentary In God We Trust, 9/11, Triumph from Tragedy, as well as the 2018 Winter Olympic Games. She is an ACE Fellow, a Karen Schmier Diversity in the Edit Fellow, and a chair of the Ujima Entertainment Coalition, a nationwide collective of African-American post-production professionals with over 700 members. She began her career in post-production operations at the Oprah Winfrey Network. Growing up around television and film, Dominique always knew she wanted to work in entertainment, and after launching her editing career, she's never looked back. Welcome, Dominique.
Hi, glad to be here.
Hi. And our next guest is Jesse Bliss, the founder and artistic director of the Roots and Wings Project Theater Company. She is a playwright, a director, producer, actress, poet, and veteran arts educator, serving prison since the age of 16. She believes deeply in providing stage and space for voices of the unnamed, unknown, and misunderstood. Her work has been produced around the world at venues such as the United Nations, Off-Broadway, Edinburgh Festival, Tracks at Union Station, Lincoln Heights Jail, Spark at the Old Jail in Venice, the Last Bookstore, King Eddie's Saloon, the Rosenthal Theater in the Inner City Arts, Casa 0101 Theater, Theater of Note, Occidental College, UCSC, UCLA, and the California Institute of Integral Studies, just to name a few. She has taught and created curriculum for the Center of Theater Group, the Geffen's Inner City Arts, Unusual Suspect, Juice, and Inside Out Writers, among others. She is a featured artist in Kate Cash's LA Woman, Look What She Said, and in Yahoo News Shine documentaries. Jesse is a grant recipient from the Flourish Foundation, California Arts Council, Poets and Writers for Working Workshops for incarcerated girls, inspiring her chapbook, I Love Myself Golden, widely celebrated on both sides of the wall. She oversees the theater and writing program at CIW, Women's Prison, in partnership with Tia Chucha's Centro Cultural. Jesse was co-producer of KPFK 970's Think Outside the Cage for several years. Her groundbreaking trilogy, written by women, Matriarch, Luminous Streets, and Women at Work, and supported by the California Arts Council, has been met with enormous appreciation. Jesse created and directed The Joyride, a traveling theater show performed out of the vintage convertible, addressing matters of the pandemic, racism, artistry, and friendship. Most recently, the Roots and Wings Project produced another run of Matriarch, which was established in 2014, with Houston Coalition Against Hate, and was performed live at MKM Cultural Center in North Hollywood, and will soon stream virtually. Welcome, Jesse.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. Ladies, welcome, welcome. I am super excited for us to get started today. So, well, first of all, I love to get started with, I want to hear your stories, and so do all of our live guests. So we're going to start with Sia. We'd love to hear in your own words, what inspired you to pursue your career?
So actually, I work in telecommunications, as you stated, for carriers, but I wasn't inspired to get into this career. I actually had wanted to be a lawyer since I was probably 10 years old, a very young person who knew what they wanted to do. I had watched, I'm going to date myself, all the legal shows, LA Law and Ally McBeal and all of the ones that we would watch as kids. And I was convinced that I could be a lawyer. And then as I started to grow older, I thought, well, I love sports. I'm going to be a sports agent, but I'm going to get my law degree so that I can effectively negotiate contracts. And then in about the second year of law school, I was a single mom. I had a 2-year-old or 3-year-old at that point. And I was waitressing as a side gig, right, to make a little money while I was in law school. And I wasn't making very much money. And one of my friends had opened a small boutique site acquisition firm that serviced the carriers as far as doing leasing and zoning entitlements, and asked me if I would like to make $25 an hour. So of course I was going to jump at that opportunity, like why not, when I was a struggling student feeding a little boy. And then I started doing it. And I was really good at it because I had obviously the legal background, right? I was, I think, in my second year at this point, so I could read ordinances very easily. I had already started my master's program in political science, so I was already interested in meeting with jurisdictions and kind of the local government and the layer of laws that kind of laid out the framework for telecommunications. And then I finished law school and I decided, oh, well, I'm going to need some trial experience. I'm going to go work for the Los Angeles Public Defender's Office, which I did, but I hated it. And I worked at the Juvenile Justice Center. I wanted to adopt every kid that was in trouble. And my mom was like, absolutely not. You need to find a different career. This is not for you. So I returned to the wireless that I knew from doing it in law school. And that's how my career started. So I wasn't inspired originally to be in this industry. But once I was here, I really loved it because it allowed me to use all aspects of my education. And I also was able to develop other people and train other people in the industry. So I really ended up loving it and continuing to grow in the wireless industry. So I wasn't inspired, but now I am.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Dominique, why don't you give us your story, please?
And I actually have a lot in common with Sia. I had my son in my junior year of college, and I actually went to San Francisco State. I graduated from Cal State LA, but I initially went to San Francisco State and returned to Los Angeles. I had my son. That was a junior in college. I didn't return to college to finish until I was 28. And by that time, I had a daughter as well. So I had two children. I had an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old, and was a full-time student. And like Sia, what happened is that I took an editing class just to kind of help out. Like I thought I wanted to go into development, which is just greenlighting what shows are going to be made and more on a network executive level. But I wanted to take an editing class just to kind of help my classmates and like make projects and just kind of have like a larger filmmaking vocabulary. And I took this little side, auxiliary classes that didn't even go towards your degree. It was just something to take. And I made this project, and it ended up winning the school's film festival that year for best editing. And from there, I got hired in my senior year by the paparazzi for $25 an hour. Okay. So I was like, yeah. And this was the time when Britney Spears was like shaving her head and all this other kind of stuff. So I was working for the paparazzi and did that for a while. That was, my entry and kind of just like into the entertainment world. And I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a development assistant. I did script coverage. I did a couple different things. But, when I graduated in 2008, I also graduated to the worst economy since the Great Depression. So I was just, kind of floundering of like, what job could I get? And I got hired as a temp at the Oprah Winfrey Network. And I was supposed to be there for 2 weeks. And just doing QC for a show. I was one of like 30 temps, right? So at the end of the 2 weeks, I was in charge of all the temps. And then from that position, they hired me to work as an assistant editor of a show because I had editing skills. And so I was on a show for this behind the scene Oprah's Next New Star show during the launch of her network. And so I worked behind the scenes of the show. And I was an assistant editor. And then from there, I got hired as employee number 2 of their post-production operations department, which meant like everything for the network, like when they send the shows to the satellites and like marketing and like ingesting shows and like all these type of things. So, and it was to support like all the departments, all the technical things of the network. And so from there, but I still didn't know what I wanted to do. Like, I still didn't know what exactly, like, is this what I wanted to do? And then one day I saw the budget and I was an assistant editor, and the editor that I was supporting was making $700 a day. And then from there, I was like, well, I'm an editor. That's what I do. Call me editor from now on. This is my profession. This is my career. This is my path. And from there, I just never looked back and worked my way up through being assistant editor in the reality world. I worked on Big Frida. I worked on $1 Million Listing. I worked on HGTV, Island Hunters, just a bunch of reality stuff. Went through the reality grind. Was able to become an editor through court shows. So if you're ever like, in the hospital at 12 noon and saw, Judge Alex or something like that, I edited all of those shows, and that's how I transitioned to an editor. And, was able to do some cool projects and worked. And then just happenstance, I got hired. I was the last editor hired on Surviving R. Kelly. And then once I got hired on Surviving R. Kelly, my career just kind of took off. And then from there, I won a Peabody Award. I was on the staff, I was able to get that award. And then, as you mentioned, I became a Concordia Fellow, which Concordia Studios that they're owned by Davis Guggenheim, who directed In Inconvenient Truth, and is partially owned by Lauren Powell Jobs, who's Steve Jobs' widow. And so they created the Concordia Studios, and so they just released I think Homeroom, and that's Ryan Coogler's next project, and they did Time, which is Oscar nominated. So just being able to work in on those films, and this year I just finished Tiana and Iman, their show that's premiering now on E Network. I just finished a feature film documentary on Showtime that will be out sometime this year and next year, and I start my next project on Monday.
Wow. Claps, snaps. We like to do all of those. There'll be lots of snaps and claps through the next 40 minutes. Don't worry. That's amazing. Jesse, why don't you give us your background too, and what inspired you to
Absolutely.
your career?
Thea and Dominique are inspiring me right now.
I know.
You know, I was born with a deep passion from my earliest memory to create what essentially was scenes. I was always, watching, The Love Boat or Dynasty, as a little girl. And I saw my first play when I was 6. My mother's best friend came and performed at my school, so I knew her. I got to sit in the front row, and that was the first time I knew theater's a real thing. This exists, and I was so lit. I had a very tumultuous childhood, and I had to create my own opportunities to do that work. So I started a theater club at 11 years old, wrote and directed 2 plays at my school because it was the only way it was going to happen. And then I got in a lot of trouble after that. And so, I wound up having a boyfriend who got locked up on his way to come pick me up. He was like, I ran away from home. He was my person. He was the person that looked after me. And he got locked up for this trunk of unmentionables. And I essentially did that time with him because he was my person. So I was always going out to the prison to see him. And I was pregnant with his kid, and I was 16 years old. And he was my lifeline. So at the same time that he was, putting me in jeopardy, he was also, a loving person in another sense. So I didn't know at that young age how that would end up driving my career and influencing the way that things would roll out for me. And so, I went out at 19. I started, stepping foot around San Francisco, and I met my acting teacher, who was a prodigy of Bobby Lewis, and he had studied with Stanislavski, and she trained me really hard. But I was disenchanted by the work written for women. I was disappointed. So I started creating my own work, and, thus became the Roots and Wings Project, which is a theater company that really pushes out the voices of women or women identified people, people from all over the world. And we have, a program at the women's prison, and I have become increasingly compelled to bridge the gap between what is happening in prison and what is going out, what is going on out here, because there's a big misconception about how people end up in prison, who is in prison, and women in prison are byproducts of racism and domestic violence and a culture that is dominated by patriarchy. So as my career has grown and progressed, I feel even more compelled to go inside, and then even more compelled to take the artists that we work with out here and integrate people coming out of prison or people that I worked with a long time ago in prison whose lives have grown in a positive direction, and have their voice be involved. I'm not sure what it does or doesn't do, but I think anything that we can do right now in this crisis is critical.
Oh, snaps, claps. I mean, honestly, this is like, I feel very inspired already. By the way, I think the $25 starting rate back in the early 2000s was the way. I am also in tech. I work for Yahoo. It was just recently Verizon Media as of a week ago, but we've come back to Yahoo. I am in this wonderful world of transition right now where I get to do a little bit of everything. So I love hearing kind of everybody's stories of kind of pulling it together. I got this. There was an opportunity. I took advantage of it, because that is, I will say, that probably will embody all things woman in tech, entertainment, and arts. We have, we are in fields that have probably always been more dominated or primarily dominated by men. And it has always come to places where you see the opportunity and you're like, you just got to go grab it. There's something there. So I'm not going completely off script with my questions, but you all kind of really said something that's really resonating with me, which was just about this. I saw an opportunity, I went after it. And that's kind of like how you got where you are today. I want to know, in that, you kind of all touched about it a little bit, but you all had to go and nurture a talent, or you had to go and nurture that something special that you saw. So yeah, why don't you tell us, how did you start to understand, like, hey, this is something really cool that's sitting out there that it's a unique value. It's a unique to me. How did you go and make that into what it is today for yourself?
So, I think what Dominique said was really interesting, because I think we do have a similar background. But the first time I knew that I might be good at this is that Metro PCS at the time was the first company that that small firm that I worked for was associated with. And what happened is that they had a leaderboard telling people who was the top, performer. And I ended up making it to the top very quickly. And I did it by realizing that there was power in relationship building. And so what I would do is I would go to the jurisdictions and I would make friends with everybody at the counter, and I would ask about their kids, and I would know like facts about them. I'd bring in donuts. I would do all of this. And what happened is that every time I needed a favor, they would take care of my stuff first, right? I figured this out very fast. And it made me, go to the top. So once I got to that, what I realized is that working my relationships and really understanding what it meant to kind of partner with other people was going to be very helpful for me in my career. So I obviously already had pursued education pretty heavily at the time that I entered into this field. So I really kind of got that out of the way. The education has helped me from the legal background. Obviously, a lot of things I do intersect with legal aspects of my job. Then the political science stuff was already there, and I got to work with jurisdictions, talk at public hearings, and do those kind of things. So it was kind of helping me there. And then obviously through the time of actually doing it, experiences taught me either this is the right way to do it or this is the wrong way to do it. And so I am the kind of person, if I make a mistake once and it's a bad mistake and it is embarrassing in any way, shape, or form, I'm probably not going to do it again, because I really try to take that in and decide, okay, that was the wrong move. And then obviously when something positive happens, I'm going to continue down that path. So I think experience has really helped me. And then finally, I think that I had really great people along the way, which saw something in me that I might not have seen in myself. And so, I didn't have any aspirations to be a director or be a regional director or go further and further. I actually did not want to get that high, because I thought that it was kind of boring the further you got away from the work. I really liked the winning, setting the goals, smashing the goals. I really liked that, which is probably why I was interested in being a trial lawyer, right? I really wanted to win. But mentors around me saw leadership abilities in me, and me getting a group of people to all go into the same direction at the same time. So they were like, I think you should be. And then they would be like this promotion opportunity. And most of the time, I know it sounds a little bratty, I've kicked and screamed and been like, I don't want this opportunity. This is not for me. I don't like this, But, a lot of great people around me have said, you'd be great for this. You really should do this because you'll have more influence, or take on this role. And I've taken it on, and in every aspect of it, I've loved, because it's given me an opportunity to use all those different pieces as I've gone through. So, yeah.
Oh, love that. Love that. Dominique, tell me about yours. Like, how did you nurture it? Was it through, a little bit through school, a little bit through time? Was there mentors?
Yes. Well, again, my experience is unique because working in post production, it's a very white male dominated arena. I mean, it really is, and I had some horrible experiences trying to just navigate my career. And when I say that, I mean like people, go breaking in my emails at lunchtime and like tearing my awards down off my edit bay and throwing them on the floor, and like vandalism and like things like that, like really just like things I had, and I was just so happy to work. I didn't know how, like, I could have sued a couple people and owned their whole company, like the things that I went through, but I was a single mother and divorced, and I was just trying to navigate as best as I could, and it was always a presumption that I didn't know what I was doing, because it's technical, it's computer driven, it's a lot of video codecs and audio and very technical aspects of production, and so I always had to go against a bias. And so what happened is that 2016, I created a group for Black entertainment professionals, the Ujima Entertainment Coalition. And at first it started with Black people in post. And like, we would just, we created like this safe space, and then we started sharing jobs with each other, and we started, kind of networking just laterally, like how can we put each other on? And then it grew and grew and grew and became a real safe space for Black people and Black professionals. And so now I need to update my bio, because now we're at 1,400 members internationally. We have members in the Caribbean, UK, Africa, but the majority of our members are New York, Atlanta, and Los Angeles. And so through that, I've really been able to represent Black creatives in entertainment. And what happened actually during the pandemic, this is the interesting thing that happened during the pandemic. It was the perfect storm of the George Floyd protests and all of the civil unrest that was going on. And then there was a posting on Facebook on job. There's on Facebook groups that each profession has like their job groups, and so this is like I needed an editor, and so this guy asked for did he know any Black editors, and it went crazy, and the backlash we had from white members were just like, well, why do you have to be Black? And like all of this reverse racism, wham. And so it really like put everything on Front Street on how hard it is for Black people to advance. And it's not about even diversity hiring. It's about retention and promotion. Like going from season 1 to season 2, becoming assistant editor to becoming editor, like rising in the ranks, and not just being, because once you're a Black person, you're really good at your job, you often get pigeonholed in that position. Like if you're a good helper, people want you to stay that way. And so it's been hard for a lot of our community to just, to elevate through production. And so with all of these things happened, studios and networks started coming to me and coming to our organization as a resource for Black talent. To say, you know what, we may have a hiring problem. Maybe we only know who we know, right? And in Los Angeles, it's very easy to be a victim or just circumstantial that you live in de facto segregation. Every ethnicity in LA has their own neighborhood. There's an Armenian neighborhood. There's a Filipino neighborhood. There's El Salvadorians. Everybody has a section. And so if you really didn't want to go out of your circle of influence, outside of your ethnic bubble, you don't have to. And so to be able to interact with people outside of your circle of trust has to be very intentional. And so what we've done, and on top of that, we address anti-Blackness. And that's another thing that that got to the forefront, that say, you know what, if you get a resume and it has Shamika on it and you have a knee-jerk reaction, you may be anti-Black.
Yep.
You may, and so just confronting those things. And so through that networking, through that nurturing, I've been able to rise through the ranks. But, it started with our own community. It started within. It started with Black people networking with Black people. And it started in the strength in that and cultivating that. And then looking laterally, like not trying to, like Issa Rae said, like not reaching to this executive up here, blah, 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 but helping my friend with their project or doing this for, those types of things. And so, that's how I've been able to just take the opportunities and the projects that I've worked on and help it to catapult my career.
Oh, amazing. And I love to hear the giving back on the other side of it right now. I mean, it's amazing. I am literally like right now I'm sitting here, I'm like, I am so inspired and I want to like go do something else that's so good at the moment. Oh God. I'm like, there's tears with my glasses. It's really awkward. Jesse, I'd love to hear about yourself, the mentors. How did you get here? How did you nurture your talents? I mean, it's incredible to hear all of these stories right now.
I definitely had a lot of support from two particular mentors who, saw me for who I am and believed in my capabilities, who pushed me. I think, I look at my daughter, I'm a single mother and it's no joke. And as we all know, and, she inspires me. And I think her presence in my life, she's 8 years old, has really pushed me harder into my theater company, which takes up the majority of my energy because I don't want to complain. Like segregation bothers me too deeply, the dynamic of segregation in Los Angeles. Seeing my daughter have to navigate it and myself having to, navigate it as an artist, as a woman. And so it has brought me the greatest joy and the most nurturing growth and support to channel my energy into my theater company, to bring people together from all over the world. And we've really grown in that. We've brought a lot more men into the project. And, from every oppressed group, you have to have your allies. That's how we all get out of catastrophes, and crimes against humanity. And so it's been a powerful experience. I met a man named Tobias in Lancaster Men's Prison on the hallway as I was leaving after doing this powerful writing and theater program with these men. And he said to me, "It's an honor to meet you and we're going to work together out there." And lo and behold, right before the pandemic hit, we were serendipitously united, and Tobias speaks 7 languages, and he's fascinated by the history of, of females and goddesses and what our presence historically means on this planet. And as a Black man, he has been extraordinarily influenced, by women in his research, but had never been around women because he was inside for 30 years for a crime he didn't commit. So I brought Tobias into the company as my co-producer and now my reentry coordinator, and it really massively shifted the work. I felt like it gave deeper support to the people who are working with a company that has 95% people who have not been inside. There's always that one person I have on. It gave deeper support, and then it gave, it gave the artist a stronger sense of the opportunity and the gratitude that we have just having stage and space to tell these stories as women, as people of color, because Tobias was weeping in that circle. I have not been around women. And here there's all these female artists telling your stories that the world emergently needs to hear in order to heal, in order for things to shift. So for me, I've noticed that when I've turned my energy outside the company, and I have done some things that have been gratifying for sure, But I noticed that, my deepest growth comes from within this work in the Roots and Wings project. And I'm watching it expand. And that's always my sign that there's something magical happening and that it's growing and I need to stick with it. And it's challenging, of course, because of my child and the hours and the demands of the work. But I look at her face and I'm like, okay, this needs to continue. And that's it. There's so much more to say, but I'm trying to cap it there. But yeah, I think we haven't been able to go inside the prison during the pandemic, and they're actually not circulating our paper curriculum in there. And so, I think it becomes even that much more important for this population that can't represent themselves for us to keep doing this work. Oh,
yeah. So I'm going to just go to the next one just so we can, I'm going to just jump in there for a second while Faith is free. So do you ladies, I think some of us mentioned mentors along the way. Faith, you're back. I was just going to go into the
Literally, I was just sitting there and I was like, this is happening. It wouldn't be like technology as a whole if it didn't just decide to crash on us randomly.
Right.
Okay, so I heard most of Jesse. That was really cool. I missed the back end. I'm really sorry. But I heard mentors going on, and I love that. I actually have a good, because now technology is taken over for us, I have a good question here. Technology has an impact on everything you guys are doing. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about how is it impacting your missions? Is it helping expand? Is it helping contract those stories that you need to tell? And Jesse, why don't we start with you? Because I don't think I heard it ping anything on that one yet.
With the Delta variant, we decided it was only 3 weeks ago, we did a two show exclusive engagement in collaboration with Houston Coalition Against Hate of our long running show called Matriarch that's been going since 2014 that addresses matters of patriarchy. And we couldn't do more than the 2 shows because of the safety matters. So we're doing a virtual run. And I'm really grateful that, we're going to have this opportunity. We're going to have a one-night exclusive engagement, October 8th, a streaming on Facebook Live. And then we'll do a 3-week run, through October to showcase the work. So that is obviously different in that it's filmed theater being streamed. So what is that? I kept thinking about movies like Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which is a play, but it was so beautifully captured as a film. There's been a few pieces I feel that have come out in the pandemic, films that were more theater-like. And so, yeah, even though the work that we do is certainly theater, I felt a different space that we were in with this, knowing that it was going to, the predominant audience was going to be virtual. And we have done, like you mentioned, the Joyride. We built a show during the pandemic out of a vintage convertible that was also streamed. So we've been streaming a lot in the pandemic and reaching people that way. And I'm so grateful, so grateful.
That's awesome. Dominique, how about for yourself? How has technology been impacting you?
Well, now we live in a world where we're all working remotely. So that is the whole new world and a whole new workflow. And it impacts you in a lot of ways. There's a lot of pros, there's a lot of cons. But having that to navigate that. But what it's done is it's allowed editors, assistant editors, and other people who may live in Alabama, who may live in Michigan, who may live in Austin, who are not inside big cities, to be able to do remote work and still be able to work necessarily in their hometown. So that's affected us. And then, this is also it's introduced a Zoom world, which although Zoom fatigue is real, it has enabled us, pre-pandemic, to get a 15-minute coffee with somebody was a large undertaking. for them to meet someone, for you to get through traffic, for you to go and make this appointment and go up the stairs and get parking and and take time out and then fight traffic to go do whatever you're doing. It was a huge undertaking. And so now with Zoom, getting a 15-minute is much, much easier with people, and people are much more receptive to networking and meeting you and just kind of see what you're about and just general get to know you things. And it's been done tremendous things for our network and our group, our nonprofit. Like, we've been able to meet with Disney, we've been able to meet with Warner Brothers, we've been able to meet with A&E, countless numbers of studios and production companies, just, being able to just have 3 or 4 meetings in a day, which could be a good and bad thing.
I agree. I think it's like one of those moments where, at first it was like, oh my God, all I do is look at this screen day in and day out. But I think at the end of the day, I actually got to grow my connections with my coworkers really in a way that I never, I always knew coworker A had 3 littles, but I only knew they only had 3 littles. Now those 3 littles join our meetings all the time.
Right.
It's wonderful.
It becomes more real. Something we were able to do. Something we were able to do within ourselves, within our own group, is we'll have virtual mixers. And so that's something that we did all through the pandemic. And then we were able to do meet and greets with studios and production companies virtually. So we'd had essentially group interviews for hiring managers from production companies, just to meet a new talent pool. So technology is really, within the last year, has really changed our industry upside down.
I think, I think it's also, think about something that has always been, especially client meetings. I'll take that as a great example. It's a whole day. You go, you travel, it's 2 or 3 hours with the client. Now I can have that same client meeting and I can do it right here, right now. The same 2 hours I was going to spend, but I feel like it's a little bit, I feel like there's been new efficiencies that have come from it. Which will be weird when we finally go back and we have to travel and all those fun things.
Well, you guys are so happy to hear all of these things, since I'm a director of network engineering and I build the wireless facilities and the broadband that most people use. That, a lot of times we get a bad rap, right? But 5G and all of the things that we've been able to implement have really, obviously the pandemic brought it all to light and brought it all together. But if we had been in this pandemic even 10 years ago, right, it'd be a very different experience for all of us, and we'd be a lot more disconnected. So I think, on the flip side of all the bad rap that wireless gets, all the conspiracy theories and other things that people have about technology that they don't really understand, sometimes I think it has been really beneficial, and especially for a lot of the kids, that have to go to school virtually. It really, just having a cell phone versus some kids don't have the internet at their house, but they had a cell phone, so they were still able to, join school and be productive in that way. And just being, I've worked in the LA market, San Diego, and now I'm in the Sacramento market. It's up and down California, just trying to help to make sure that we have that backbone there for people to use it. It really just was, not that the pandemic came at the right time, because I don't think there was ever a right time for us to experience this, but the fact that we did have that in place, it was really good to be a part of that piece of it.
Yeah. It was, honestly, it was something to see. It was nice to be able to see some thriving coming out of all of this where we could. Go ahead.
I was going to say, just honestly, from a consumer end, in the future, I hope it doesn't go away. I hope we have some kind of hybrid existence where, 2 days in the office, 3 days out, or, to be able to be able to have that flexibility to maintain working remotely, and getting together when necessary, not necessarily that you have to be in somebody's face for 40 hours and lose 2 hours of your life in traffic every day. But that's me.
So this is actually, I think this is this is going to bring a great question, because I think no one's really in a 9-to-5 job. It's a little bit all over. So I really want to dig in, and I'm going to go a little personal, but I want to hear, how are you balancing, keyword, and we all know how it goes. How are you balancing like the home and the career life right now, especially when you do have late nights editing, because that's where the creative inspiration sparks. Dominique, why don't we start with you?
Well, first I go to therapy every Wednesday. That's number one.
Yep.
Or just, to help with guidance with that. I would just, want to emphasize that. But, for me, for working from home, two things that really help me in just this work-life balance, because it could go on. I've gotten text messages at midnight for changes. And, producers and people know I'm at home. I'm in front of my computer. Like they tell me something late at night, it's like, come on, we're all here. So there is that. But first of all, just being really organized and treating home like work, like saying I'm from 10 to 5. This is what I'm going to do in this only. And trying to really like hone in your focus and like work the entire time you're working. Like just try to get as much efficiency out of it as you can. And then I actually, if you're in the Los Angeles area, I sometimes go down to the Metaphor Club on Crenshaw Boulevard, and it's a co-working space across the street from Leimert Park. Yep. And so I'll go there and work sometimes just to get out the house. Mm-hmm. But at 6:00 when I go home, when the commute is only like 5 minutes, and I feel like the end of the day is the end of the day, and I can go and exercise. Like it really is like, like it really like defines like the bookends of my day. So just, just keeping those things and just, perspective and boundaries and like you can't do 24 hours. You can't do 16 hours. You can't, that's going to kill you. Like, and sometimes you got to tell people I'm tired. Like, no, I'm tired.
That's it. I'm done. I think we were talking about this before everyone had come on, and it's really, look, we can't change the situation I'm in, but the one thing I can change is the perspective of how I look at it. And it's the only thing I can control is how am I gonna look at it? And it's very similar. Like, hey, I'm gonna come in, I got my hours and I'm gonna work with you, and then I'm gonna go, if I want to go and take a 2-hour lunch because I've decided that I'm gonna work at 7 tonight, then I'm gonna do that. And I'm gonna feel no guilt around changing my schedule. And maybe some days, for the most part, schedule's the schedule, but I make sure I make time for me as much as possible. Because at the end of the day, and I'm sure we'll kind of go through this, is if I'm not good, nothing else is going to happen.
Exactly.
If my head is not on straight, if I'm feeling super overwhelmed, the work that I have to sit here, it's just going to continue to build. It's not going to get done until I kind of sit there and say, okay, what do we got to do here? Mm-hmm. Jesse, I'd love to hear, especially for you, theater, all hours, late nights. Tell us a little bit about how you try to keep that balance.
I wake up at 4:15 a.m. every day, and I do that because I need that quiet space. It's dark out, it's peaceful. I love coffee. I exercise, I meditate, I pray, I write. And that really helps me out. It really makes a huge difference in my life and the way that I feel and the energy that I'm able to give. And then the other thing is I'm very protective of my boundaries, because this can go on all day and night, and it does. And so I really try to prioritize, especially when I'm with my daughter. I just put the ringer off and I really leave it all alone and deal with it when I'm able. And then, sometimes it's very difficult to say no. And I think as women, there's expectations of us to be available all the time for everybody. Right. And I know for me, I even sometimes get a panicky feeling about saying no, but I try to practice that and really, assert myself that way, because otherwise it's bad news. What I find is, my quality of work isn't good. It's not efficient. I'm not thinking clearly, and I'm essentially giving energy that I don't have. So I try to protect my time.
Yeah. Sia, how about yourself?
So, ladies, I'm going to be personal. I wasn't very good at this when my son was much younger. He's 22 now, he's 22 at the end of this month. So now, I have my life back and I don't even know what to do with it. But when I was younger, I, was very ambitious. Obviously, I was trying to move up and make sure that I could sustain a household on my own with no support. So it was, something had to give. So a lot of times I did, try to be there, for my son for every game and everything that he did. But oftentimes that meant that I had to make sacrifices in relationships that I had, personal relationships, or maybe I wasn't exercising or I was neglecting myself. But I came to a point where I decided that I had to reprioritize myself, right? Start to exercise. So I do that. I started a podcast called The Cogent Code. So I do that as a creative outlet. And I record, different subjects that I think is interesting with a co-host. I also, I go to the spa, probably every 2 weeks now that my kid has grown, I have a lot of weekend time to myself.
Right.
I go to the spa, I get my nails done. I pamper myself as I can to make sure that I get that balance. And then finally, I decided to not have my emails on my phone. And if I'm spending personal time with someone, then I really try to put my phone to the side, because I had relationships in the past where people would share with me that I was always distracted and I wasn't really focusing on what was in front of me. I was always trying to focus on something else. And so that was a really big learning opportunity for me to provide that balance and really look at what the balance that I didn't have in my life and try to, reprioritize myself instead of putting everybody else first and everything else first, just because I had ambitions to grow. So
love. So we are coming across to our last few minutes, and I'm going to change our last question a little bit. But I feel like everyone has touched upon this a little bit. I wrote my question. There it is. I was like, it was a good question that I came up with. Listen, all of you have talked about how you got here. And I want to go in and I want to say, if you could go back to your 20-year-old self, what would be the advice that you would give her? Can you hear me?
I hear you. Yeah, we can hear you. I think I'll jump in first. I think I would tell myself to be kinder to myself, be less critical of everything that I was doing, maybe not correct. I think some of the, criticism is a gift when somebody else gives it to you and they really care about you and they want you to grow. But I think the worst critic a lot of times is yourself, being a little bit hard on yourself and not realizing that with everything that you have on your plate, you're doing the best possible thing that you can in all ways, right? And I think people that are ambitious or people who want to grow their career or people who have other responsibilities, or even I think, when Dominique was saying that she has an organization that's even outside of her normal work duties, we give. And when we don't get something right, or we're not able to be everywhere all the time, right? We get hard on ourselves, like, oh, I wish I could do that and that and that. So I think, like, for me, if I could go back to 20-year-olds, I would say you're going to be a success. You just have to wait it out and be kind to yourself along the way. Don't be so hard on yourself. The way that people perceive you isn't the same way you perceive yourself. So
I love it. Jesse, how about yourself? What would you give what's the biggest piece of advice you'd give to your 20-year-old self?
Have no shame in your ambition. I was very, very ambitious, and I really had nobody to look toward to validate that for a long time. And, my family didn't understand it. And I think that it would have been great to feel rest assured that, that was not only okay, but that ambition is a beautiful thing, and doors are going to be shut in your face. And that's all a beautiful, blessed part of it. And when one door shuts, that means it wasn't supposed to be yours. Something else is going to open. So I wish I would have, understood that a little bit more at that time in my life.
Yep. All right, Dominique, bring us home. what would you give as your 20? What advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
My 20-year-old self, I was a college student in San Francisco, and, I was working, and I had my little pasta primavera life. And so, one thing, I'm going to go practical, would be, I would tell my 20-year-old self to learn about credit. Learn about it. Learn about credit at 20. That's the only thing. Everything else is God's plan. It was meant to be. I got my son, the lessons I learned, everything. And to piggyback on Cia says, be kind to yourself. Don't be so critical. And then this is all, it's learning and growth and everything. You don't have to be perfect. And you don't have to be, you don't have to take on others' impression of you as truth. Or someone, trying to take, trying to break you down or stop your shine. You don't have to internalize that as truth. But 20-year-old Dominique was strong. So I would just say, learn about this credit thing early so you don't have to fix it in the back end.
Oh, I love it. Ladies, honestly, this has been amazing. I'm probably frozen, but I can hear everybody, so we're still going to roll with it. This has been absolutely incredible. An amazing conversation. So, Jesse, I'm going to pass it over to you. Yeah. You're going to go and read us a poem.
We can't go over. We can't go past 5. Is that true?
No, we can go a few minutes. We'll be okay.
I have I have a piece about Sandra Bland, and then I have an excerpt from my book, I Love Myself Golden, written for incarcerated women. You choose. Oh. Faith, what do you want? Because I'm kind of feeling both of them. So what do you think?
I think I like the second one. I want to hear about how to. I want to do this. Okay. I want to hear. I don't know. I like both.
Okay. So this book is called I Love Myself Golden, and it's palm size so that it can be hidden in the bra in the facilities and at least circulated a little bit. It's called I Love Myself Golden. Do I love myself golden? It's something that I strive for. It's something that I wish for. Here's a couple of excerpts from this book. The pain women and girls feel is so often discounted. We are taught that it doesn't matter and we should hide it. Tears are your soul's way of taking a bath or shower. Tears are cleansing. Tears help us to process the things we experience in life. Tears are to be released, honored, and appreciated, for without them, we cannot grow. Every time you need to have a good cry, let yourself. You will feel better afterward. If there is a shoulder to cry on, do it. If there isn't, remember the universe sees and hears your every cry and is watching you, loving you, and protecting you. There is no shame in your pain, but rather celebration. It means you are alive. Your pain is valid, important, and part of your strength. And then you know what? I'll read one more tiny little excerpt from the closing. Okay. You hold the whole world within you. You are a queen. You are the light. Generations of women before you, ancestors, are watching over you and protecting you at all times. They are there to communicate with you. You're a magic woman and can take any bad and make it into good. You're capable of achieving anything and everything your heart desires. When you're in a place you feel you don't belong or you are not being treated the way you know you deserve, you turn to your heart and say, I love myself, golden.
Beautiful.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Beautiful.
You.
Oh, Jesse, thank you. Dominique, thank you. Cia, thank you. Honestly, ladies, this has been a wonderful afternoon. I appreciate your time and spending it with us and giving us your stories, because you have shared and made, I'm hoping everyone is as inspired as I am. For everyone that's joined us today, thank you so much for joining us. Our next virtual roundtable will be October 6th, where we're going to go and talk to social media experts and influence. And we're going to get some tips and tricks on how you can grow that brand or business that you've been building. Until next time, we will see you then. Stay safe. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.